Alright, well here we are in the shop. We're going to do a little bit of weathering on this Athearn Genesis boxcar. It's a Norfolk and Western boxcar. We're going to do a little bit of basic weathering with the airbrush, and then I'm going to do some other weathering with a paintbrush. But first we're going to just kind of dull it down a little bit so it's not so shiny and new looking. What we'll do to do that is I'm going to take a mixture of mostly water. This is dirty water that I've cleaned brushes in and whatnot, but that doesn't matter for this particular application. And I'm just going to take a tiny little bit of this polyester dirt paint. So we have a very thin mixture here, very watery mixture. Okay. And I'm just going to fog it on here real lightly, and that should, when it dries, just kind of dull it down a little bit. It's not enough to really color it, not even on the white. But when this dries, it'll dry very flat, and it'll give it just a slight amount of dirtiness. A little bit on the top. As long as it's wet, it's going to have that shiny look still. So when it dries, we'll see a little bit of a difference. And when you're doing the weathering on anything that has ribs and details and things, you want to do it from a couple of different angles so that you don't have any sort of shadow areas that were not weathered. That includes from up high, and I already did from down low. Next thing I want to do is across the roof. A lot of soot and crud will fall on the roof when the train's moving, especially when it goes through tunnels. It's going to get a lot of diesel exhaust and smoke. In the good old days, it used to get the soot and whatnot from the steam engines, but that's not such a problem anymore. But it still does get a lot of soot and crud. What I want to do here is just fog the top with this black. Turn the model. That's good. Okay, what we're doing now is a mix of the polyester dirt. It's a more concentrated mix than we did before when we were doing just the overall dust. Now we're going just along the bottom of the model. And a little bit underneath. I hope you can see there, we're getting a little bit of a dust effect near the bottom. Then we do the ends as well. A lot of dirt will fly up from the wheels and whatnot, so we kind of go like this a little bit. Mainly on the sides, not so much right up the middle. And that's the basic airbrushing of the weathering. Put the light on here. And hopefully you'll see on the video that it's not shining as much as it was. It's a lot duller overall, and then we've got that sort of dust effect along the bottom. So the next step is going to be done with paintbrushes. We're going to do some small bits of weathering. We're going to do little bits of rust in a few places. I don't want to do too much rust on this because it's a fairly new car. But there are areas where paint would chip, paint would wear away, and there would be a bit of rust, so we're going to go ahead and put some on there. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is rust on a few of the areas that would tend to be worn away, where parts move, where parts scrape, where people grab, things like that. So the first step in doing that actually is, before you even get out the rust, is get out any silver or steel type color. I've got Tamiya flat aluminum here, which works okay. And what you want to do is put a little bit on your brush and then get most of it off, and then go to the areas like these grab irons here. Just put a little bit on there. What you're doing is showing that the paint has worn away. There's some mechanisms here, some rollers. I'm going to get a little bit of this metal color on there. Latches across the top. Just on the very highlights. Just to show wear. I know that's going to be a little hard to see on the video, but there's little bits of silver there and little bits on the handles. Now I'm going to tone that silver down a little bit just by using just a little bit of this oily black. Remember the guys on the railroad grabbing a hold of things and moving things? They're going to have a lot of greasy gloves on and things like that, so there's going to be a little bit of oily black. And these wheels here would probably have grease on them. This will just tone down the silver a little bit too. It's still there, but it's toned down. The thing with weathering is subtlety. You don't want to be hit over the head with it. I'm going to go ahead and hit the trucks with a little dry brush of the grimy black. There still is actually a little bit of silver left in my brush, and I don't really care about that. That's fine. Getting the inside of the wheels there. Okay, the next step is applying the rust. I'm going to get a slightly smaller brush. This is a 18-0 using polyester rust. Get most of it off the brush again. I just want to dab those silver areas. Worn off there almost completely. Okay. There's going to be some streaking and whatnot done later. I'm just getting the basic. A little bit on the handles and the steps. What I want to do is show that this rust here is run down a bit. Possibly even right over the letter. Is dip the brush in water. Get some water here on the bench. And a little bit of rust in there. So we have a very diluted solution of it. And just go along this track. That's an area that would be real rusty, I think, because these wheels would be running back and forth across there all the time. Okay, so let's go back, give a little more attention to the wheels again. I'm going to go with a slightly heavier solution. I'm going to put the model down, just rotate the wheels. A lot of people use like pastels and dusts and powders and things like that. Like my boy Al, Monster Railroad, he uses a lot of pastels and dusts and weathering powders, whatever you want to call them, down in these areas. I prefer to do most of it with paint.